Good morning, everyone. I'm here today to discuss the fascinating evolution of living organisms from organic molecules to anaerobic heterotrophs, then to chemoautotrophic organisms with the aid of enzymes and bacterial chlorophyll. Through this presentation, I hope to show you how remarkable and interdependent the world of biology really is. Let's begin. Biological evolution is the process of change in living organisms over many generations. This process is responsible for the vast range of life that exists on Earth. DNA can change subtly over time, allowing species to gradually become accustomed to their environment, potentially leading to the formation of a completely new species. This mechanism is referred to as natural selection and is what powers the evolutionary process. Biological evolution is the process of formation of life from chemistry. It starts with synthesis of complex organic molecules, which turn into colloidal aggregates called cochervates. Formation of cochervates from organic molecules was a crucial step in the evolution of living organisms, resulting in their diversification over time. We can see that the evolution of the building blocks of life has been incredibly brilliant. Starting with simple droplets, then progressing to more complex chemical organizers, and finally to molecules with lipid membranes, this evolution has enabled us to reach the complexity of present-day organisms. This evolutionary progression, from primitive beginnings, has allowed for the emergence of the intricate life forms that exist around us today. Organic evolution is a process of transformation over time that has generated the wide range of life on Earth. This growth has been triggered by life forms adjusting to their surroundings and partly by random alteration and selection. An illustration of how this works is the emergence of enzymes. Enzymes are proteins that act as activators, speeding up responses inside the cells that form life forms. An example of this is that some of the proteins within them acquired the characteristics of enzymes, resulting in the accelerated multiplication of molecules, facilitating the creation of new life forms. Organic evolution and the emergence of early anaerobic heterotrophs can be described as molecules gradually combining to form more complex structures. This process, which has spanned billions of years, resulted in the first organisms to evolve on Earth, which obtains their energy through fermentation. The slide shows that the earliest living organisms had clumps of nucleoproteins. Over time, they acquired enzymes that catalyzed the synthesis of carbohydrates. This led to the formation of single or double DNA molecules, the foundations of prokaryotes. Organic evolution has been a key factor on Earth since its initial stages. Carbon dioxide, an essential requirement for life, was utilized by the initial organisms to generate energy through a process known as chemosynthesis. These organisms had the capacity to survive in extreme temperatures and formed the basis from which more complicated organisms formed. This brought about the proliferation of life on Earth and has ultimately led to the tremendous diversity of species visible nowadays. Some bacteria can synthesize chlorophyll, a remarkable ability. Examples of these are purple and green sulfur bacteria, which take magnesium porphyrin from the ocean to generate a type of chlorophyll. This is a critical step in the development of organic life. Organic evolution was the next step in the history of life on Earth. It started with the first anoxygenic photoautotrophic organisms, which employed particular pigments to absorb solar energy, and then utilized it to transform CO2 into organic molecules. This served as the starting point of the food chain for all future life forms. Organic life has been integral to the formation of our planet's modern atmosphere over billions of years. Bacterial chlorophyll evolved into true chlorophyll, as in cyanobacteria and plants, allowing for the evolution of oxygenic, photoautotrophic organisms such as blue-green algae. This resulted in a drastic increase of oxygen in the atmosphere, forming the oxidizing atmosphere we have today. The evolution of organisms over time has been attributed to two processes: chemical and biological. The emergence of free oxygen enabled the aerobic mode of respiration to develop, which has been seen as a major factor in the eventual development of eukaryotes. The endosymbiotic theory suggests that mitochondria and chloroplasts, which are organelles of eukaryotic cells, originated from ancient bacteria. It suggests that these bacteria entered into a mutualistic relationship with the cell, whereby they provided the cell with energy and in return were given a place to live. This process ultimately led to the formation of the organelles and the variety of eukaryotes that exist today. One of the biggest changes in the history of life on Earth was the rise of eukaryotes. This evolution was likely due to prokaryotes being absorbed into the ancestor of eukaryotes, generating a symbiotic relationship that profited both organisms. This adaptation let eukaryotes evolve to become more complex and better able to cope with the environment. The fossil record suggests that the endomembrane system of eukaryotes arose from two separate sources, mitochondria and plastids. It is believed that this system originated from the infoldings of the plasma membrane of the ancestral prokaryotes. In 1953, Urey and Miller conducted a simulation experiment to demonstrate the chemical origin of life, a theory previously suggested by Appearin. Their work was met with experimental verification, resulting in a major breakthrough for our understanding of the beginning of life on Earth. Scientists are attempting to simulate primordial conditions in a laboratory setting so as to study organic evolution in a managed atmosphere. Even though our comprehension of the conditions that gave rise to life is still incomplete, this research is assisting us in putting together the pieces of the puzzle. The concept of organic evolution is the scientific understanding of how life on Earth evolved. It involves a mixture of water vapor, methane, ammonia and hydrogen sealed in a spark chamber with electrodes for electric discharge, simulating the energy of lightning. The slide shows a set of apparatus connected together. A flask is attached to one end and a spark chamber is connected to the other end, which then leads to a condenser tube. This formation is necessary for boiling, producing rain and cooling. Focusing on organic evolution, our laboratory experiments have revealed that simple amino acids, such as glycine, alanine, and aspartic acid, are able to form in aqueous solutions when exposed to the right conditions. Further observations of the formation of all types of amino acids, as well as adenine and other nitrogen bases, highlight the complexity of the natural world and the potential for the evolution of organic matter. Organic evolution is a key element in comprehending the genesis of life on Earth. H. Urey, author of The Origin of Life on the Earth, in 1924, was one of the noteworthy researchers in this domain. His conceptions concerning the chemical roots of life were subsequently continued by A.I. Appearin and Stanley Miller in the 1950s and 60s. Altogether, these experts have helped construct the present-day understanding of the formation and development of organic life on Earth. In this session we will examine the chemical origin of life, exploring evidence pioneered by Appearin and Haldane, Urey and Miller, and Francesco Redi and Spallanzani. We will assess their findings and ascertain how their research assists us in our comprehension of the organic evolution of life on Earth. Miller conducted an experiment to demonstrate that organic matter could be generated under certain conditions. A gaseous mixture was sealed in a spark chamber and 4 combinations of mixtures were tested. Mixture 1 of carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen, Mixture 2 of carbon, ammonia, and hydrogen, Mixture 3 of carbon, nitrogen, and hydrogen, and Mixture 4, which included all of these components. It was observed that organic matter was formed in all of the mixtures, indicating that organic molecules can be formed when the right conditions are present. The fourth point concerns the primitive ocean. Referred to as the prebiotic soup, the hot dilute soup was hypothesized by A.I. Apparin, J.B.S. Haldane, Stanley Miller, and Harold Urey. They sought to investigate how organic molecules could have been formed without involving life and stumbled upon the synthesis of simple chemicals that could have been made under conditions similar to Earth's primordial environment. This theory is a crucial part of the evolutionary process and helps us comprehend the emergence of life on Earth. There is an abundance of evidence to support biological evolution. Fossils, extinction patterns, and homology are all examples that have been verified through scientific research. The fossil record shows the progression of life forms over millions of years. Extinctions indicate how species mutated to better fit their environment. Comparisons of species have revealed similar structures, pointing to a shared common ancestor. This all serves as strong proof for the validity of evolutionary theory. The fossil record provides evidence that organisms have changed over time. It illustrates how species have evolved, split into multiple species and eventually become extinct. Species that were present many millions of years ago no longer exist today, while new species have emerged in their place, demonstrating the occurrence of biological evolution. Evidence from embryology shows a series of remarkable similarities between different species. Even at the early stages of development, embryos of different species have similar features and structures, which provide support for the theory of common descent and confirms the theory of evolution through common ancestry. Comparative embryology is an effective means to gather more evidence for biological evolution. Organisms have been studied for similarities in structure, function or behavior for centuries. Comparative anatomy is a science that systematically compares different anatomical features of different groups of organisms. Comparative anatomy helps us to understand evolutionary adaptations of different organisms and provides us with evidence that all organisms have evolved from a common ancestor. The patterns of similarity in anatomy between species indicate that they are closely related evolutionarily and share common ancestors. Molecular and cell biology have provided strong evidence for organic evolution. Biochemistry has enabled us to comprehend the formation of complex organic compounds, as well as the replication and inheritance of genetic material. Furthermore, DNA sequencing and analysis give us information about the genetic differences between species, as well as the evolutionary links between them. Moreover, cutting-edge technologies like proteomics, bioinformatics, and genomics are further helping us to appreciate the complexity of life. Paleontology is the study of prehistoric life through fossils, remnants of plants or animals preserved in the layers of Earth. Fossilized remains of species no longer existent today give insight into the evolutionary history of life on Earth. Fossils also give information on the size and shape of ancient organisms, as well as the environment they lived in. By looking at the fossil record, we can learn how species have changed and adapted over millions of years. Organic evolution is an extremely persuasive theory which helps to make clear the variety of life on Earth. Examining the fossils, we can comprehend the organisms which used to live on Earth, how they fitted into their environment, and how they developed over time. Fossils can be found in the form of molds, casts, petrifications, and coprolites, which offer us exclusive glimpses of the past life. As we go on to discover further about the fossil record, we can get to know the process of organic evolution and the growth of our current ecological systems. Fossil record is one of the greatest proofs of organic evolution and an important source for comprehending the timeline of life on Earth. Fossils are remnants from the distant past caused by the gradual substitution of remains of organisms with minerals, which then form copies of the past beings. Depending on the process, fossils may come as impressions, petrification, or coprolites. By studying these ancient remains, researchers can recognize shifts that happen over long periods of time in various living beings and their relationships. Fossil casts are of great importance for our comprehension of how life has changed over the ages. When a fossilized organism is identified, it can give us a glimpse of the look of certain species from millions of years ago. By researching these fossil casts, we can come to know the form, morphology, and behavior of ancient creatures, granting us a more thorough understanding of the evolution of life on our planet. Organic evolution is an intriguing field of scientific inquiry. Fossil records offer us an extraordinary look back into the past, and allow us to trace the evolution of different species. Petrification is an extraordinary way to observe this process, in which organic matter is replaced by minerals and ultimately turned into stone. This process can last for millions of years and is truly captivating. It provides invaluable information about the evolutionary history of animals and plants, offering us a peek into long-ago eras. Coprolites are fossilized feces and an excellent indication of what organisms existed in an area centuries or even tens of thousands of years ago. Through examining the type and composition of these fossilized remains, we can gain insight into the evolution of different species over time and how animals living today are related to those from the distant past. Studying coprolites helps us piece together a larger puzzle of the past. Fossil record offers an incomparable insight into the past of life on the Earth. By finding transitional forms, researchers have had the possibility to connect various species and thus comprehend the development of life. From Eusthenopteran connecting fishes and amphibians to Cynognathus connecting reptiles and mammals, the proof of these connecting species indicates how they fill the space between the foremost groups of vertebrates. With this proof, we receive a more exhaustive description of the past of life on our planet. Radiocarbon dating is a scientific method of determining the age of fossils by measuring the amount of carbon-14, uranium-238, and potassium-40 isotopes found in a fossil. This data is then used to calculate the approximate age of the fossil, providing an accurate estimate of its age and a valuable clue to the history of our planet. Fossils are an incredible tool to observe the past of the planet. They provide tangible proof of the transformations life has undergone across the centuries. Examining the fossils, we can study the correlation between different species as well as the ecological modifications that took place over millions of years. Comprehending the evolutionary history is one of the best methods to gain understanding into the dynamics of evolution and its overall effect on the planet. Embryology is an intriguing area of research that has witnessed significant advancement and evolution in recent times. Ernst Haeckel is often credited as the founding father of embryology, and his research has added vastly to our current awareness of the initial development of a living organism. His studies have helped explain matters of evolution, form and structure, and their interconnected complexities. With the continuous progress of this domain, it is evident that the knowledge procured can be highly advantageous in numerous disciplines. Carl Ernst von Baer, a renowned embryologist and naturalist, made some of the most momentous findings in evolutionary biology. His studies of embryos from distinct species showed a substantial amount of fundamental likeness, demonstrating the existence of a common origin. He maintained that the more separated two species are from an evolutionary standpoint, the less alike their embryos will be. His efforts furthered our knowledge of common descent and gave shape to the modern evolutionary synthesis. Von Baer's observations had a major impact on evolutionary studies. He looked into the sequence of developmental stages of certain animals, helping with the comprehension of the embryology shared among them, ranging from fish all the way to chickens and humans. His findings suggested that ancestral characteristics reappear during the developmental stages of several animals. There are remarkable similarities between a variety of different species when it comes to their early embryos, which suggests that all these species are closely related and points to a common ancestor. As the embryos develop, however, they begin to take on specialized characteristics that differentiate them from one another. This leads to the concept of organic evolution and how it has shaped our natural world. Starting from a single-cell zygote, the organic evolution of life progresses through a series of developmental stages. Cleavages lead to the formation of a morula, then a blastula, followed by a gastrula. As the organism matures, it eventually matures into the adult form. Organic evolution can be observed through the development of embryos. Following the zygote, the single-cell stage, the morula and blastula stages mirror colonial protozoan stages, and the gastrula stage represents the cnidarian stage. Visibly, all multicellular organisms go through the same basic evolutionary stages, indicating our shared ancestry. Ernst Haeckel proposed the biogenetic law, also known as the recapitulation theory, which states that the development of an organism follows the evolutionary history of its ancestors. As an example, the tadpole larva of a frog externally and internally resembles a fish with its tail, gills, and two-chambered heart, before then metamorphosing into the adult frog. This theory thus implies that the longer history of an organism's ancient ancestors is seen in the shorter developmental sequence of its modern descendant. Observing this slide, we can see that the caterpillar larva of a butterfly retains characteristics of its closest ancestor, the annelid, in body form. Additionally, research has revealed that the process of organic evolution is seen in the hearts of birds and mammals, as it progresses from two-chambered hearts in fish, to three-chambered hearts in amphibians, an incompletely divided four-chambered heart in reptiles, and finally four-chambered hearts in birds and mammals. slide focuses on evolution of biological organisms. We will discuss biogenetic law or theory of recapitulation proposed by Ernst Haeckel. This theory suggests that an organism's development is a reflection, or recapitulation, of evolution from the past. Looking at organisms at each stage of development, we can recognize key similarities to other species that have gone through that same stages, providing evidence of evolution. Exercising regularly is essential for optimal health and well-being. Comparative anatomy provides us with evidence that regular exercise brings a range of health benefits, from improved physical and mental health to better sleep and higher quality of life. Let us explore the many advantages of exercising regularly. Organic evolution is a concept that explains why living things possess certain similarities in terms of anatomy. Homologous organs is one type of comparison that focuses on the structure and origin of similar organs, even though they might perform different functions. An example of this is the forelimbs of humans, whales and bats. All of them have the same origin, but are used for different things. Examining such similarities assists us in comprehending the history of evolution on Earth. Adaptive radiation or divergent evolution is the process by which organisms develop different physical traits that give them a competitive edge in response to their environment. This occurs when animals from a certain original habitat move into new habitats, where they will modify themselves to suit the new surroundings. As this continues, differences accumulate between the groups, leading to the formation of new species. This shows how changes in the environment can cause evolutionary changes in certain organisms. Organisms are not static entities, they have evolved over time. This slide shows the evolution of appendages on vertebrates, from whale flippers and bat wings to horse forelimbs, cat paws and human hands. All of these can be traced back to simpler structures present in earlier species. By looking at the slide, one gets a unique insight into the evolution of species over time. Organisms may possess similar body forms even though the processes they underwent to attain that form are disparate. These organs, called analogous organs, demonstrate convergent evolution. Convergent evolution is the occurrence of similar body forms in unrelated or distantly related organisms due to dissimilar genetic makeup. This phenomenon is observable in a variety of species, showing the numerous opportunities for life to thrive on Earth. I would like to focus on organic evolution with an example of the wings of a butterfly and a bird. This demonstrates how physical changes over time can have a significant impact on an organism's lifestyle. The wings of these creatures are special adaptations that enable them to do things they would not be able to do without them. This provides a clear benefit to their way of life. Organic evolution is the progressive transformation of life on Earth from straightforward forms to the complex organisms we observe today. Convergent evolution is one example of organic evolution. It occurs when two different species living in close proximity begin to resemble each other in bodily form. An example of this are sharks and whales, living in the same aquatic environment and taking on similar body shapes, or earthworms and snakes that both live in burrows and share similar body forms. These similar characteristics were developed in response to similar conditions, thus showing the strong effect convergent evolution can have on species. In regards to evolution, the concept of organic evolution has become a focus, focusing on the vestigial organs of organisms. These organs were once functional in the organism's ancestors, but have since become non-functional and reduced in their descendants. Interestingly, humans have a vast array of vestigial organs, with around 180 different types present. It is for this reason why Wiedersheim famously declared humans to be a moving museum of antiquities. Organic evolution is the topic of this slide, providing examples of how it works in nature. Remnants of evolution seen today are vestigial organs such as the plica semilunaris and the vermiform appendix. Species can have organs that are no longer in use, like hind limbs in python, hind limbs and pelvic girdle in whales, wings in flightless birds, and mammary glands in males. This proves that organic evolution is a real process that has occurred on Earth. An interesting phenomenon known as atavism has been observed in several species, where certain individuals display traits that were once found in their evolutionary ancestors. Particularly interesting is the sudden appearance of vestigial organs in a more developed state. This phenomenon is a fascinating example of how evolution can create atavistic organs, which can serve as evidence for the concept of organic evolution. We're discussing connecting links, creatures that have elements of two separate groups between which they are intermediate. Peripodus, for instance, is an example of this with its characteristics of Annelida and Arthropoda, likewise Prototherians with Reptilia and Mammalia. It's interesting to examine these connections and how it provides insight into the evolution of species. Evidence for evolutionary biology can be found from the study of cell and molecular biology. Three areas which can provide useful evidence are the fundamental unity of life, blood precipitation tests, and biochemical recapitulations. Investigating these areas can give us a greater knowledge of the mechanics of evolution. Evidence of organic evolution can be seen, with research and technological advancements allowing us to observe how the structure of DNA and the functioning of proteins are shared among organisms from bacteria to humans. This indicates that all living organisms have descended from a single common ancestor. The concept of the fundamental unity of life has been integral in many scientific progressions. The discovery of the eukaryotic cell has exposed a single, complex and detailed unit of life, comprising of all the components that make life possible. From Golgi complex and mitochondria to DNA and RNA. The eukaryotic cell is a remarkable and indispensable part of the collective being of life. Considering the evolution of life, it is essential to comprehend the part of mitochondria and ribosomes in organic life. Mitochondria are organelles that furnish energy for the cell while ribosomes are in charge of the amalgamation of proteins. Both of them are essential for the enduring and advancement of all living beings. Organic evolution is a process in which organisms alter themselves over time. In this process, the data stored in DNA is of vital importance. Although all organisms possess the same 4 types of nucleotides in their DNA, proteins are formed from a combination of 20 diverse types of amino acids. In addition, all organisms have the same genetic codes, allowing mutations to be transmitted across generations. Organic evolution is the process through which the biochemical substances and biochemical reactions of life forms have changed over time. These molecules and processes are shared among all living entities and can be used to show the relationship that exists between them. By looking at the evolution of biochemical substances and reactions, one is able to gain insight into the development of all life, as well as the forces that have molded it. Organic evolution has been significantly enhanced by findings on the hormone thyroxine. It plays a vital role in metabolism and, when injected into a frog without a thyroid, the frog experiences metamorphosis. This exemplifies that the purpose of thyroxin is identical in all animals and is a remarkable transition of form over the lifetime of the organism. Grasping the involvement of thyroxin in organic evolution, we gain knowledge into the diverseness and intricacy of life on our planet. Blood precipitation tests, developed by H. F. Nuttall, are integral to our knowledge of the evolution of life on Earth. Through the use of antigens and antibodies, these tests can be used to determine the relationship between different living organisms. By examining the antigens and antibodies of these organisms, we gain a better understanding of the similarities and differences between them, advancing our comprehension of the history of life on Earth. A blood precipitation test was first used by a scientist to test human serum. This involved injecting a small amount of human serum into a rabbit, which then produced anti-human antibodies. The serum of the rabbit was then referred to as anti-human serum. This test allows us to gain more insight into blood antigens and antibodies. The experiment is a great demonstration of organic evolution in action. It illustrates that evolutionary links can be deduced through laboratory tests. The findings indicate that the anthropoid ape is closer to humans than to monkeys and dogs. This experiment evidences how genus and species are associated with each other through evolutionary pathways, and how humans are connected to the rest of the animal kingdom. Organic evolution is a fascinating process, from the most basic of living creatures to the more complex organisms that inhabit our world today. Each life form has gone through a series of changes over time, as evidenced by its DNA, RNA, proteins and carbohydrates. Species evolve, rethinking their genomic composition to better adapt and survive in their changing environment. Studying the biochemical processes of an organism allows us to trace its evolutionary past and uncover its ancient roots. Organic evolution of a frog and its tadpole is a remarkable phenomenon. In this slide, we can observe that an adult frog excretes urea while its tadpole excretes ammonia, similar to fish. Moreover, bird embryos excrete ammonia during the first 4 days of development, in the same way as fishes. During the following 9 days, the embryos excrete urea like amphibians, and then uric acid like reptiles and birds. As for mammalian embryos, they start by excreting ammonia, move on to uric acid and finally produce urea. This is a remarkable example of how organic evolution has shaped different species over time. We will be discussing organic evolution and its relation to the observation of organs that have dissimilar structure and origin, but serve the same purpose. These organs can range from analogous organs to homologous organs, depending on the species. We will explore their different properties that set them apart and how this idea has changed with time. Organic evolution is the process in which organisms diversify and develop from common ancestors over time due to the combination of genetic mutation and natural selection. An example of this is the presence of mammary glands in males, which is an inherited trait that is not used but is associated with the organs of the ancestral species. Homologous organs, on the other hand, have a common developmental origin but may have different functions in different species. We are exploring the evolution of organisms, with a particular focus on wings of insects and birds. These two different sets of wings are actually examples of homologous organs, organs which developed from the same common evolutionary ancestor. We can compare and contrast the two, to gain insight into the process of divergent evolution, as well as the broader concept of cladogenesis. The study of organic evolution can teach us fascinating things about the world around us.